intro. Beth will come on, give you a breakdown of the macro environment, any news events that happen over the course of the evening, as well as things to look forward to today and this morning. She'll be going through any relevant ETFs, commodities, or bigger picture items that make sense to be looking at in the short to medium term. Once that's done, I'm going to come on, give you a breakdown of the individual names that I'm looking at today. Names that are gapping up, gapping down. We'll talk about the news associated with those gap up, gap downs. We'll also go through the technicals on those charts and build an action plan for the open on those individual items. Once that's done, I'll also go through the SPY and the FANG. We'll talk about the VXX as well to give us the pivot points and direction for the market today. That's done. South Beach will come on, give you a breakdown of the analysts. Calls for the day, as well as macro environment, what he's looking at, and individual names, and then we'll be ready for the open. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass over to Beth, and I'll talk to you guys shortly. Beth, it's all yours.
I am indeed. Thank you, sir. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome, a warm welcome to our new members, as well as those joining us pre-market here on our live YouTube stream, something we do every day. It's something that Spartan shares this with you guys. Lots to talk about. Obviously, yesterday was quite special. in many ways. The Powell effect. I mean, he keeps saying, well, there's no tightening, guys, so chill. But the bond traders aren't believing him. Here we go, Liz. Yesterday, I want to tell you that there was on the API crude, it was a build instead of a draw. So just saying. Out of Germany, GDP numbers better than expected, okay, which is notable. Today, we have basically the new home sales, as well as Powell this is the second day of testimony for Congress. And then we get our lovely EIA, which you never know what's going to happen. Clarita is speaking as well. Let's take a look at what our gal Kathy did. The minute it was announced that she added some more to her Tesla, guess what? Tesla's up. This is fascinating how this is working out, guys. I took off a lot of my hedges yesterday, and I'll go into a little more detail with that as well. I don't know if we're actually out of the woods, but I think the range, the robust high and low is set, I think, for quite some time. Individual tickers is a different thing. I'm just talking about the ETFs, the indices, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Also, Facebook. She's been accumulating Facebook, which I really like as well. Okay. Let's take a look at yesterday, the heat map from the S&P. This is the XLK, XLV, XLY in the doghouse, XLC, XLP. I love this XLP, guys. I really do. The consumer staples, I continue to add to it. This is going to be a long-term swing position for me. I'm in both June's and January's calls, very inexpensive. So that's what I'm doing there. I'm kind of ambivalent about the XLF right now. I am in it, but I'm ambivalent about it. XLI, you know, I love as well. XLB, this is all wonderful. Real estate, utilities, and the energy. I have issues with the energy side, and you'll see why very soon. Okay, the sweeps that came by yesterday, guys, is not indicative of a multi-day, multi-week, multi-month move down. It's just not. I mean, the quality, what we saw, yeah, there was some protection being put on, et cetera, et cetera. But what I look for in all of this, guys, is how far out are they going? All right, well, the diamond's only out to March. Okay, so you're talking, you know, basically 3 weeks out, 3.5 weeks out, stuff like that. Energy, this is shits and bits. It was expensive, so that tells me that, you know, and here's energy. I mean, come on. So that's the thing that I'm looking at. Also, on the other side, any large call sweeps that come through, i.e. Tesla, okay, and you can see right here, these are new positions, okay, 3.2, somebody had a feeling on Tesla, right? So this was in the money as well, so obviously it was probably paper replacement. Here we go, it's bullish, God bless, and off you go, okay? Bar chart, this is one of the services I subscribe to, is really inexpensive. They just started to do what some of the other ones are doing. They basically have signals now that are 100% buy and 100% sell. So top dog on the 100% buy was SLDB. That was something that South Beach had shouted out. But you can see here some of the other stuff going on. And for those of you who are looking for ideas, this is not a bad way to look at it, to give you from a technical perspective. Okay, short-term, medium-term, long-term, as well as the opinion. I don't know what that means. Today's based on where the price lies in reference to the common interpretation of all 13 studies. So this is all for 13 studies, right? There you go. Okay, and they also on the other side, God bless, have sell signals as well. So I like to share some of the different things that I subscribe to that you can see. And like I say, there's so much information out there. And especially if you're looking for ideas, that's one of the ways. All right, let's take a look at the news overnight. Facebook. This actually happened at the end of this trading cycle yesterday. This is the settlement with Australia. Okay, this is, I think, going to be the template for how the U.S. Congress is going to do the same thing. Okay. Also, I saw that it was kind of fascinating on CNBC. They were talking about, because of the tax implications, that the payment raised up to $15 an hour actually increased the budget, the adding to the budget because of the tax implications. So instead of it being a net drain, it actually is a gain. So it's going to be interesting to see what some of these companies say about it. So for the in terms of the deficit, it's actually a positive, not a negative. Yeah, we'll see. Okay, let's take a look at our phase table. You know, I like to look at this. What's really nice, guys, is we don't have anything in the 90s right now, which is, phew, that was really kind of something, right? And then you can see here in the sweet spot, lots of stuff, all right? And this is what it looks like. Otherwise, I bring to your attention QQQ, Bitcoin. What am I saying? SMH, right? MJ, XLY. This is all bullish. Okay, XLV, right? And then you have stuff in the middle, diamond, yada yada yada. But this is still the energy stuff. According to this, it's still showing in the 90s on the optex. So I mean, something to think about. Okay. I'm not overly keen on the energy side right now. Okay. All right, so let's take a look. There were a couple of headlines on a sentiment trader yesterday. We're going to, like I say, go into a little bit of detail. This is going over the NASDAQ. Okay, so after the almost recovery from 2.5% intraday drop within 5%, nah, bullish. Okay. The other side is what happened with the SPY, SPX, and we'll go over that in more detail. This is the second time in over 60 years that the SPY, SPX, has gone from a negative 1.75% plus to green. And we'll go over the digits to see what that looks like. Once again, the smart money, dumb money guys, this is not looking like they're done, because if this, even with this pullback, this is a red flag. Okay, so that's telling me the market as a whole, both smart and dumb institutions and retail, are saying we're not done on the upside with the market. We don't care. We're not selling, yada, yada, yada. But then you see what happened with ARK, right? There was an outflows, quite a robust amount, but you know, they keep getting money coming in, so who cares? All right, this is a high yield bond. What does that look like in terms of what's going on? It's exuberant, okay? And what does this mean in terms of returns on the high yield? Not as good a thing as you would expect. I mean, this is really interesting. Only a 50% win rate off of this, guys. 1 year out, that's different, okay? All right, so 6.8%, right? So that, you know, the question is going to be, where are we in this whole cycle? I think it's really hard, though, as long as the Powell et al. Say, hey, we're not tightening, we're not tightening. Hey, guys, we're not tightening. Okay. Right. And as you can see here, what happens with the S&P backtest when this happens, okay, with the high yield, right? Is it bullish? Is it bearish? Okay, it's bullish, actually. But sloppy choppy for many, many months. And then you can carry on. All right, let's take a look at the VIX. I continue to maintain that I know that we look at the VXX intraday, but the reality is if you are going to look at the VIX as a hedge, don't use VXX, you got to use VIX, and you got to go at least a month out. That's my story, sticking to it. It's obvious, right? Because here you go. This is the spread, right? And we've talked about this every day, the VXX. Even though traders use it, okay, au contraire, I would say you should be using the VIX. Okay, 10-year, still at the levels that I'm not happy with right now. We know from what the market is doing that first off, it does not like it when the yield curve as well as the yield goes up to the degree that it did, right? If we continue, I think that this is where we are right here in this cycle. That's what I think right now. This is where I think we are right now, okay? Maybe a little bit more, maybe up into this downtrend line, then it starts to come back down. This is going to be the key issue right here, right? Consolidation, then it started up the next leg higher, okay? That would obviously be, but this is a monthly, guys. So we're talking 2 years out, 1 year out of this one, okay? So like I said, I don't think we're going to get, we should not get a lot more on the upside in terms of on the yield. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at this. So I went back for those of you who are so inclined, and I went back to the SPX, and it happens to be February 5th, 1980 is when this transpired. Okay. So we have two dates, February 5th, 1980 was the only other time that the SPX was down 1.75% and rallied to turn positive. What does that mean? For the next 6 days, believe it or not, the S&P went up 7.45%. Okay. And then for the next 30 days off that peak, it went down 21.81%. So here I have it mapped out for 859, if that will be symmetry. And then on the downside, it actually is stunning how this projects to this extension. Okay, for the next month. Pretty cool. Okay. All right. So we'll see how, this is just, it's only happened one other time. So who knows if people have actually gone back and taken a peek. Don't know. Okay. FXI bounced off of a weekly extension. Okay, that goes back quite a ways. Okay. We're kind of in no man's land. I still have 50% of my hedge on FXI. And that looks like March 48 puts. So I've been making some really good money on these puts. I've been slowly taking it off. I'm a little bit surprised that it's down, and it's right, and it's basically right here. Okay. If we do start to break that, I'm not gonna add another ladder. Okay. I'm going to be patient with it, but I'm not going to sell anything that I have right now unless we quickly get down to here. So 49.26. Because of the time, this actually, if we do start to break down here, guys, we could have a reversion to the mean, which could get those 48 puts in the money. I have not touched any of my longer dated stuff, and that's what I teach, is that you have to protect your long-term swings. And I did it with monthly March 48 puts. At the time when I picked it, okay, it was kind of up here, 52s. You know what? Let's go back here. Let's see if we've got any FXI coming in. Nothing. I think there was an EEM. Oh, guess not. Okay. And then A shares. I thought there was one yesterday, but I obviously was wrong. All right, let's take a look at Bitcoin. I love this. Okay, so reversion to the mean, all within 2 days. Bounced off the 20 EMA on the daily. Okay. The reversion would have been down here if it had gotten down here. Now Square comes out and say, hey guys, I'm doing the same thing. I'm starting to buy this stuff. As a digital currency, I don't think you can't put the genie back in the box on this one, guys. What I'm looking at for you who like to follow me on commodities, I'm actually looking at the Silvergate, okay, to see. You can see right here what it did was a gap filled. It now has another gap to fill, okay, up to here. So what I'm looking at is if we do start to reclaim this fib, which is 146.56, okay, we're just about there, then I'm going to buy some SI spreads. Okay. And I'm going to go as far, I'm going to go to August. Well, I don't know if I'm going to get filled, but that's what I'm doing. I'm not chasing, guys. The other way to do it is just to buy the equity, right? Let's take a look at block. Okay, this is what I like to trade. A2, interesting. Should we pull back to below the 78.6%? I'll be quite honest with you. This has a mind of its own, but let's, we'll see how this plays out. Okay. Interesting. That's all I have to say. I know that Spartan's on top of this intraday, so but this is my way of playing Riot, Mara, those kinds, just by using this BLOK. All right, alphabet soup time. I know I normally do more on the overseas market, but this is important because I want to go over the deets with you. Monthly XLK bounced off of an extension that goes back all the way to October. Yeah, October. Okay. I thought it would actually bounce off of this, but it did do the extension. So it has work to be done, but right now it's reclaimed this all-time high. So we'll see how it can do. We have time in it, right? So we'll see whether it can reclaim the 134.79, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like I said, I don't know if we're out of the woods. My feeling is right now that I will, on this bounce, the quality of this bounce, I will probably get back into some protection. Okay. I did raise some cash yesterday. I have also some things that I've added to. I posted it yesterday. And you can see I was adding to Apple, Amazon, right? Tesla, stuff like that. Okay. XLV, where are we here? As you saw earlier, this was down, this was up. I'm sorry, down right here. Let's see what that looks like here. A2 bounced off a monthly extension. From a technical point of view, if you look at the longer term picture, guys, the market is fine, right? This is what happens when you get these elasticity type moves. The pullbacks scare the shit out of you, but you stay calm, and if nothing has changed from the one day to the next day, guess what, guys? You basically use this as a gift in your BTFD. If nothing has changed from one day to the next. Powell came out and said, hey guys, nothing has changed in the last couple of days, right? So that's how that looks. XLY, once again, as you can see here, this also was red. This is, don't forget, this is Amazon and Tesla, okay, are the two top holdings in XLY. So Tesla beautifully up almost 30 bucks. It was up 30 bucks not too long ago. This should give a nice little bounce to the XLY. I have not done anything with the XLY. I'm just, it's a swing. I don't care. The only way I would actually do something with some of these guys, it would literally have to break these longer term channels that we're in. Okay, I would maybe put some puts on if we did break this low right here, but we bounced right off it. So fantastic. I don't know if the plunge protection team was in or not, but it's possible. All right, that. This is the lithium and battery ETF I like to play. Gap fill. That's exactly what it did, guys. Perfectly filled the gap, bounced, well, anyways. A new one I want you to take a look at. This is the Chinese environment. So I'm trying to find different ways for us to play some of these Chinese EV names, as well as solar, okay? So I was taking a look at this, and I'm actually gonna be doing a small starter on this. It bounced off the 23.6. It almost gap filled. Okay, we may have a little bit more, but it's a starter. And this is something that will be multi-year, long-term sort of, right? Why? This is why. Okay. It's got a lot of names in there that I want to be in. Okay. Right. Let's take a look at another one, QCLN. All right. This obviously has a little bit more. We got a double top here. We basically yanked, we pulled back. Almost, what's also fascinating, guys, is how it's holding these shallower fibs. That's a bullish narrative, right? If you can basically bounce off the 23.6%, start to go higher, that's wildly bullish. So that's the minimum retracement you would expect, and that's what you would expect in a bull market, is 23.6, 38.2% retracements. Okay. And the reason why I'm looking at this one as well is because of this. Tesla, Enphase, NEO. It also has NEO in it, so I would probably do a starter as well. Plug Power, Solar Edge. So there's a lot of this ALB I know as well, and so there's a lot of stuff in here that interests me as well. All right, one more that we're going to look at right now, guys, is TAN. Okay. A2, it basically bounced off a little bit more of a pierce, but it does that, guys. It reversion to the mean, bounce off an extension, and reclaim the 23.6%. Is that not cool? So I am putting positions on in this as well. I know that Spartan was shouting out some solar names, et cetera, et cetera. He thinks that the extensions are done on the downside. So we'll see how that plays out, okay? Like I say, I used yesterday as an opportunity to get out some of my hedges. I was in Facebook puts, I was in Netflix puts, I was in Taiwan semi puts, I was in stocks, all these different things that I was in. I was in QID, yada, yada, yada. And I got out of 75% of those hedges off of what we saw. Now the question is going to be, I will probably have trailing stops to re-enter some of those trades. Okay, so, yeah. So let's take a peek here at the other charts here. So this is QID, and you can see that this is the, whenever you're looking at commodities, those of you who are new or haven't really seen what we do, you want to look at the 4-hour charts. You don't want to look at any short time frame. 1 hour maybe, but this is my go-to, is 4 hours, right? It clears out so much stuff, right? So you can see here, pulled back, yada, 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 yada. It, makes sense to you, right? Okay, let's take a look at the crude. On that, perfect, you can see it's curling, bounced off the reversion to the mean. Wow, the 21 EMA, I look at that. I still don't know what to do with this, guys, to be honest with you. It's still below this extension. I still think it goes lower. I think it got way ahead of itself. And I think just as a short-term correction on it, okay? So what happens is when you normally get this sort of thing, you can see it takes it out, okay? So here it was, and then it came back down. That's what I'm thinking is gonna happen. Not quite sure yet on that. Let's take a look at gold as well. So this obviously is shorter time frames. I can't get too excited about it, guys. I mean, it's got a lot of work to be done, a lot. So I'm still very, very, very light on gold, okay? And I'm basically in heavier in silver, platinum, stuff like that. Okay, once again, welcome to those of you joining us for the first time. It's my time to pass it on to Spartan, and I hope you enjoy it. Take care. Cheers. Are you ready, sir?
Need 1 minute, Beth, please.
I can do that very easily. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at silver. Obviously a healthier looking chart. Still, it's grinding higher. And I also want to look at this, one of the platinum trades. Okay, so basically this is the platinum ETF. All right, so we got a little bit of a pullback in it, but no damage has been done technically on the weekly. Okay, and it almost touched off the 6. Oh, that's pretty damn close, right? So what do we want to see? We want to start to reclaim on the weekly previous all-time highs. That's what we want to see. And the other one that we were playing with that at SBSW as well. Still, I love this name, guys. This is the one I want to be in. Okay. Let's take a little bit look at.
All right, Beth, ready to go.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yep. Alrighty, guys. Morning. Thank you, Beth. As always, let's take a look at what we got going on today this morning. Let me just pop up the screen share here. If you guys are new to chat, I'm going to post the Discord link for you in the Zoom chat in a little bit. So just be patient for that. You'll get it at the end of the stream. Let's take a look at what we got going on though today. So a couple of different things we're looking at. Obviously, we got some bounces across the board. AI, SI, OSTK, RIDE, FSR, SYPR. A couple different names that we're looking at today. So AI bouncing sympathy with the market, SI bouncing sympathy with Bitcoin after the square buy, OSTK earnings miss, EPS revs bought into, stocks gapping down a little bit. RIDE bought into in sympathy with Bitcoin after the square buy as well. FSR, Fisker shares up 21%, following the news of collaboration with Foxconn for electric vehicle project. And then SYPR, Cypress shares spike higher. Company wins defense contract awarded for electric modules for precision guided anti-ship missile system. Anyways, stocks gapping up there. FYI, guys, on the RIDE, I did sell 1/2 of it this morning on that long that we took in the after hours yesterday. Worked out nicely. And yeah, we'll see where that thing can go. Anywho, let's take a look at what we got going on today. AI and SI, first two names that we're looking at. So AI, SI, let's see here. AI gapping up off after last day's sell-off, extended to the downside on the daily. Let's see where we got room to today. Just going to quickly label some supports. That. Okay. 137.55. Let's see where we are right now. Okay. There's the 50 MA. So pivot to the upside today, guys, 124.43. Levels able to hold. You got room towards the 133.89 to 137.54. Unable to hold on AI. Look for a pullback towards 122.76 to the 114.64 level on the downside. Overall on AI, going to be leaning bullish. Looking for a continuation push to the upside today. So I want to see a reclaim of that pivot and then a push higher. Let's take a look at SI. Leaning bullish there. SI. Stock's obviously gapping up. Now we can use our pivots from essentially yesterday. Exact same levels. All right, perfect. 141.36, guys. Pivot to the upside today. This level is able to hold him towards 149 to 154.36. That level breaks. We'll see 160s. Unable to hold, look for a pullback to 132.32 to the 125.69 level. Going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side right now on SWAT or SI. Looking for a little bit more of a bounce to the upside as long as that pivot can stay intact. So we'll keep an eye on that level this morning. So that is AI, that is SI. Let's take a look at the next two once I take a screenshot of these. All righty. AI and SI. So next two names that we're going to be looking at today, OSTK and Riot. Let's take a look at these two. So OSTK, a little bit of a gap down this morning on earnings. Let's see where we got room to today. Last day, pretty much huge bounce off the 50 MA. Support down there, a little bit at here. All right, that should be good. Let's take a look at this thing intraday here. All right, pivot to the downside today, guys, will be the 79.49 level, which is the 50 MA on the daily. If this level is able to hold, we got room for continuation lower into 76.77 to 73.26. Able to hold, look for pushback to 84.42 to 86.09. We reclaim that level. We can see continuation back towards the 91 level on the upside. Overall in OSTK, going to be leaning bullish neutral, looking for basing to kick in at that 50 MA support or lower end support to take the stock long. I do think we can bounce and see some continuation to the upside. So that's what I'll be looking for today on OSTK. Let's take a look at Riot, which I think we should be good for levels. Yep. That was weird. Why did that one delete? Pivot to the upside today, guys. 58.30 on Riot. This level is able to be reclaimed. We got room back towards 62.17 to the 67.65 level on the upside. Unable to hold. Look for a pullback on Riot towards 52.40 to 48.34 on the downside. Overall on Riot, going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side today, looking for a continuation push higher. As long as this pivot point can reclaim, we should see a continued bounce. It is back above EMA support on the daily, which is around 50.70, so I do like that. So that's OSDK, that is Riot. All right, let's take a look at the next two, which are FSR and SYPR. Screenshot those. All right, FSR, let's take a look. It's a nice gap up on this name today. I believe we're yep, close to all-time highs. All right, easy enough. 1937, guys, pivot to the upside today on FSR. This level is able to hold. We got room towards 2076 to the 2197 level. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback towards 1832 to 1781 on the downside. Overall on FSR, going to be leaning on the bullish side today, looking for a continuation push higher. All right, let's take a look at SYPR. $506 pivot to the upside today. This level is able to hold. We got room towards 578. If that level breaks, we can see further continuation towards 655 on the upside. Unable to hold, look for a pullback to 437 at 344 on the downside on SYPR. Overall on SYPR, going to be leaning on the bearish side today, looking for a continuation pop. I do think we're going to see topping around the 6, hopefully 50s, maybe a little bit higher, and we can look to take some of that name short. So that's what I'm thinking on that name today. So that's SYPR, that's FSR. Let's take a screenshot of these both, and let's take a look at the SPY and the FANG. Let's take a look at the SPY here. I'm actually just going to quickly save this. There we go. There we go. Okay. Take a quick view of the daily chart here. What do we see? Currently SPY back above, I believe it's back above. Let's just take a look. 888. Okay, so we're sitting right at EMA support, right above it on the daily chart. So reclaiming that, bounced pretty much off the 50 MA yesterday, which is great. We're back above the weekly range pivot as well to the upside. We'll see whether or not that level can hold today. Pivot essentially is going to be right here. This 388, 32 level. This level was unable to hold. We got room back towards 387.10 to the 385.87 level on the downside. Level's able to hold. Room towards 389.52 to 390.24. So if that level breaks, we can see further continuation towards 391.06 on the upside. Overall on the SPY, going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side today as long as that pivot can hold. If the pivot can stay intact, we can push higher. Pivot unable to hold, obviously market will start to come in. We'll see a little bit of volatility. Huge range so far in the market. This gives us incredible opportunity, especially intraday. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Real quick, we might as well look at the VXX alongside the SPY because I like to do this together now. I might as well label that. So pivot on the VXX to the downside today, guys, will be 515. Levels unable to hold. We got room towards 490s. That level breaks, 1450 will be tested. Able to push up 1560 and then $16 on the upside. Watch that 15 for direction on the SPY, essentially. Starts to break down. We should see a continuation sell-off to the downside on the VXX, which should allow the market to push higher. We may see a little bit of a divergence today on both. That's what I was thinking, that if people are nervous, they're going to be buying the VXX as the market pushes up a little bit. So we'll see if that occurs. If not, then obviously then we should see a little bit more strength on the SPY and individual names. I think tech names look primed to bounce. EV, green names look primed to bounce. A lot of them are extended to the downside on the daily chart. So something to keep in mind in that regard. Let's take a look at Apple. Did I screenshot both? I think I did. Yes, I did. All right, let's take a look at Apple. So I think what happened yesterday, guys, and you know, it was an institution selling. It was shaking out a ton of retail hands. Weak hands yesterday. Nothing's changed from a macro perspective. So I think what we should see is a lot of these big cap names hold up well today. But again, we got to defer to the pivot points, technicals, etc. 126.35 is the pivot on Apple to the upside today. If this level is able to hold, we got room towards 128.32 to 130.16. Unable to hold 124.94 to 123.35. Sorry, 25 will be tested on the downside. Overall, going to be leaning bullish, neutral on Apple today, looking for a grind higher, hold the pivot, continuation push to the upside. One thing I like about how the market's gapping up today is it's not a huge gap up. You don't want to see massive gap ups. I think for continuation, you want to see slight, and then maybe we sell off a little bit this morning on profit taking, and then we can grind higher if we want to see more of a bounce. Realistically, let's take a look at Apple on the daily. Let's see what's going on here. So still got a little bit of room to fill the gap. 127.74. Probably if it gets back above these levels, wants to push back to retest the 50 MA. Definitely was extended to the downside. That's for darn sure. You can see this as well on Apple. Long-term trend tested and held. So that's obviously another positive. So a couple things to look for on this name today. Basically use the pivot though. Keep it simple. A little bit of a curl on the VXX going on right now, pre-market. Let's take a look at Amazon. A little bit extended to the downside here as well. Uh, 32.23s, okay. Basically, $3,200 is your pivot to the upside today on Amazon. This level is able to be reclaimed. Room towards the 32.26 to 32.48. Unable to hold. Look for a pullback to 31.75 to 31.70. Sorry, 31.47 on the downside. Overall on Amazon, going to be leaning bullish, neutral. Looking for basing to kick in to take the stock long. If we can get back above that pivot point, I think we can get a nice bounce. So that's Amazon. Let's take a look at Netflix. So Netflix got a nice reclaim of the 50 MA yesterday. A little bit of a downtrend break as well, actually. Not a bad looking daily chart. Compared to the other FANG names, looks a lot better. 545.35 pivot to the upside today. This level is able to hold. They got room towards 550.77. Unable to hold. I guess able to break that. Room towards 558. Unable to hold 538.84 to the 533.71 level. Will be tested on the downside. Overall on the Netflix, going to be leaning a little bit more on the bearish neutral side. I think we get a little bit of a pullback, retest the inverted head and shoulders, and then we can see whether or not that can hold up for a push. But slight bearish off the open because of that. I want to see a retest of those. The downtrend that it broke, the EMA supports that are reclaimed before we see more continuation higher. So that is Netflix. Let's take a look at Facebook. So we know that ARK bought some Facebook yesterday, which is quite interesting. Massive range it's stuck within. All the support held, looks like. Retesting EMA resistance on the upside. A little bit of a rejection for now. Should actually label this 367.22s. There you go. This could actually roll over, I think, today. $267.22 pivot to the upside today. This level is unable to hold. We're towards 263.85 to 260.25. Able to reclaim, look for a pushback to 269.84 on the upside. Overall on Facebook, going to be leaning bearish. So if it's unable to reclaim the pivot, it is getting rejected at EMA resistance to the upside on the daily, which means we should see a little bit of a rollover. So we'll see what happens there. Market came in a little bit here. All right, last but not least on Google. $20.91 pivot to the upside today. This level is able to be reclaimed. We got room for continuation back towards the 211.17 spot. Unable to hold, look for a pullback towards the 2048 to the 2021 level on the downside. Overall on Google, going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side. Bounced off the bottom of the range. I think we can grind back up. So that's Google. All right, let's take a look at a couple just because we got some time here, guys. A couple ETFs. XLK. So XLK was extended to the downside yesterday. It did test the 50 MA and hold. Gap fill area is around 134.18. I think it still needs to probably pop back up to fill it. Probably will do that today. This is one of the main vehicles. I obviously use the SPY to hedge, but XLK as well. So the tech's weak, then use the tech ETF. Grab puts on it, whatever. But so far, everything's intact. Uptrend's intact. Things are holding. Keep an eye on that 131.32 spot. That would be your pivot point on this name today. Right there. 131.32. Super important level to be watching out the gate. And you have things like XLF, which had a basically kind of consolidative, a little bit of a pullback move yesterday, but mainly consolidative. Still looking fantastic on the daily to the upside for continuation. So you got some great relative strength there. XLE as well. Great relative strength. If you're looking for relative strength names, that's where they, two ETFs it's been in, and as well as the basically all the opening names. are looking good as well. You know, airliners, etc. Jets, you can see obviously that one looks fantastic here as well. So you can simply just look to play the names of where the money's rotating into for relative strength, which was what we've been doing. You know, kind of safe haven plays. And then, of course, there's just the random individual names. EV names as well, I think, look fantastic for a continued bounce off the low. So you take a look at something like NEO, still extended, XPEV still extended, LI extended. Obviously, Tesla had that massive extension off the lows yesterday. This name today, at least paying attention to that as well. Seeing how much more of a bounce we can get. One thing to note, though, guys, is because you got ARK buying so much of this, people love to follow ARK. If Tesla does roll over, I do think you're going to see it get smoked. So if it fails, things could get messy there. And particularly in the market as well. I was talking to one of our moderators yesterday about this. And I think if we do see failure in the market today or tomorrow, we're going to see a pretty huge unwind because no one will be prepared for it. But we'll see. I think everything from a macro perspective and technical perspective right now looks fine. So something to keep in mind, though. I am hedging every single night so far. Hedges worked yesterday. I have hedges again tonight, or from yesterday into today, which they're not really needed, but we'll see what happens. You should hedge overnight if you are going to be swing trading anything or having longer term positions on, just in case in the short term. Anywho, that's it for me right now, guys. I'm going to go ahead and pass over to South Beach as I type out the pre-market action plan, and I'll talk to you guys shortly. South Beach, if you're ready, it's all yours.
Morning, guys. Okay. Wednesday, let's see what we got. Okay. You don't have to look any further than the bond market. That's the place to focus, right? 10 years of 0.06, more or less, at 1.42. Okay. Pretty decent move. And of course, the 6 month, 1 year barely moves, spread widens, right? So you have a positive sloping yield curve, and that's positive for financials and amongst other things that we'll talk about. Okay. London, Britain, they're up about 0.06 as well at 0.77. And across the pond, Germany's also up. France, they're both still negative. France just barely, and German 10 years at 0.29. Okay. So we see rates basically globally going higher. Okay. Let's look at commodities. So of course, oil is going to be a little bit higher, right? And copper is up a little bit. That's a new high at 419. Keeps going up. Inflation, right? Palladium's up, platinum's up, etc. Let's see what else we got. Currencies. Dollar's unchanged against North America. It's up a little against Japan. It's down a little bit against China, and the euro barely moves, right? Same old thing. Crypto's up a bunch, 2,200. That's about 4%. Basically, you know, you saw the news out of MSTR. You saw the news out of Square, both of whom bought more Bitcoin. You had it talked down by Yellen. I think it resumes its uptrend, but we'll see. Okay. These corporations buy into the idea of, you know, keeping some of their cash in crypto. It's going to keep going up. So we'll see. Let's look at indexes across the board. FTSE's flat. DAX is up 1%. Is it? No, 0.5%. Nikkei is down 1.6. China's down 1.9. And Hong Kong's down 3% on a kind of like a trading tax, transaction tax, which our government is looking at as well. And that would be super bad for us if they did that. We'll see. Okay. Tax and spend, tax and spend, tax and spend. That's what we're looking at. Okay. So yesterday, the market had a vicious rebound. because basically Powell saved the day. Okay, came in, I'm sticking to my guns. I'm going to keep rates low, keep liquidity, buy 100 and whatever billion dollars worth of bonds every month, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. I'm not going to take my foot off the pedal until we get full employment, all the things the market wanted to hear. Okay. So as I've said a million times, the market is ruled by government. That's the way it is. And if they want the stock market to go up by, paying you to take further risk and put your money in risk, risky assets, the stock market goes up. And that's that. When they pull the plug and they dry up liquidity, market goes down. So at the end of the day, it's government, government, government. And that's the way it is. And that's the way it's going to be forever, and we'll see what happens. But right now, Powell is drinking the Kool-Aid for higher stock prices, right? I'm going to, keep doing what I'm doing. But you have something weird going on because you have a democratically ruled government that wants to put through a $1.9 trillion stimulus. Well, it doesn't get much more inflationary than that, people. Okay, so you have, on the one hand, you have someone saying, I want full employment. On the other hand, you have the drunken sailor spending money like crazy. And so you have this, it's more what they do than they say. And if they're going to do this major stimulus, inflation is going to go higher. And it's going to be challenging for the stock market going forward, no matter what he says. Because inflation comes back, you just can't keep ignoring it. So that's what we're stuck with, all right, at the moment. So what groups do well in inflation and what groups don't? And that's how we've been playing it, and that's how you have to continue to play it, okay? Stocks with high PE ratios that don't make a lot of money tend to do poor in that scenario. Companies that have pricing power can raise prices, pass inflation onto the consumer, et cetera, like cyclical stocks, like airlines, like cruise lines, et cetera. They do better. Now, there was also the news about J&J's vaccine. So we're going to have a glut of vaccines. Me personally, I wouldn't want to take the J&J vaccine at, 61% effective or 66% effective versus the other one that above 90%. Why would anybody want the J&J vaccine? But I have to tell you, these vaccines work. My father-in-law was going in to get a stent. They told him he had COVID. The guy's old, I don't know how old, like maybe 88, 90, and he didn't even know. All right. And it shows you how it works. I mean, you don't even know the effects. It's incredible. So these vaccines work, and the economy is going to get back in gear faster than you'll be surprised how fast. Okay. And there'll be a glut of vaccines probably by the end of March. And, people start going back to work, et cetera, and they're going to raise rates whether you like it or not. All right. And that's a headwind for the stock market. And you're seeing it every day we come in. It was just smooth sailing every day. And now it's these spastic moves. Profits are, a liquid, moving market, moving higher is difficult to find. And I think that's what we're stuck with. So, Powell's he speaks again this morning, I think. But basically, everybody knows what he's going to say. And so here we have tech getting hit, higher inflation. We see banks trading up. We see cruise lines up again, et cetera. So it's the same cast of characters working the same way they've been working. And that's what we have. Okay. So I spent a lot of time on banks and the Fed, but that's really what we're talking about here. All right. China, no news out of there except that trading tax they put on, transaction tax they put on Hong Kong. I think that was the biggest down they've had in a while. Gold, virus. I told you, I've been saying, as far as the stock market's concerned, it's over. All right. It's looking at 6 months. In 6 months, anybody who wants a vaccine will have it. And that's that. Mr. Market yesterday. Okay, we had that, really rough opening followed by a pretty good rally. The best stocks out there were the airlines, big oil, E&P was strong. What was weak? Solar, semis, high PE names, but lack of earnings. Semis, not so much lack of earnings, but high PE names. What else? Restaurant stocks were weak. Bitcoin was super weak. We know why. Yellen talking about a digital dollar, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think she can talk it down. She can temporarily, but I don't think it'll last. EV was weak, and the vaccine stocks were weak. All right, so that's what we have. I think we could see more of the same, and that's how I see it. All right. As far as research is concerned, we had that people reacting to the SNAP meeting yesterday, analyst meeting, raising their targets. Morgan Stanley goes to 85. A couple of other guys raised their targets as well. The only short name that I saw was CGC, hold to sell at Jefferies, but the guy's been wrong. Okay, he had an 18 target, he reduced it to 17, stock's 35. I would ignore the guy. He's clearly out of sync with the stock. ENR was downgraded at Goldman, but it wasn't a hard downgrade. Okay, so I would ignore that as well. OSK is getting some upgrades. They got the business that they were competing with Workhorse. They got the order from the U.S. Postal Service. Stock's higher on that. What else was there? WRB was upgraded. I like this call out of UBS. Target goes from 73 to 80. I know the stock really well. I know the people there. Very well run, super insurance company, etc. UPWK is up on earnings a lot. BTIG raised their target to 75. American Eagle, Cowan raised their target there, raised it to outperform, increased their target to 31. In this environment, retail should be okay as people go back into the stores, okay? And the stimulus check, right? So you have a lot of things helping retail in this particular case. The retailers that might be a little soft would be the ones that did best, I think, when we had the lockdown, like a Walmart and a Target may have headwinds, and the ones where you have to go to shop the mall and stuff like that. I think they may do a little bit of a catch-up situation. Jefferies likes Workday. Raised the target to what, 3.25 from 280. Stock's 260. Deutsche Bank likes Arlo. It's not a lot. You know what? You know how I feel about Wall Street analysts, with a few exceptions. I'm not so keen on them. Square, people like it even with the earnings that were. I mean, the stock's had a great run. Okay, it kind of reminds me there's something. Who's reporting earnings today? Viacom. I mean, like, these earnings have to be so good for this stock to keep going up. I mean, it's had such a run. So I don't think what's it called is any different. What was it? Square, sorry. And so that's that. SPAC World, they got murdered yesterday. I had a truckload. I had a tough day with that, but I have 3 that have deals today. One is an interesting one. This RTP invested in an airplane taxi service, which I thought was pretty cool. It looks like a helicopter, but it has propellers on it. Not the one propeller on top, but like it looks like, what is it, that that plane that the British have, the Harrier? It kind of looks a little bit like that. Kind of cool, actually. So that's 3 of them. I don't want to increase my exposure, so if one gets a deal, I'll probably sell it and buy one that doesn't have a deal. But I'm going to keep my exposure the same. But anyway, I had 3 today with deals, which I'm happy about. And that's that. Let's see what good old Kathy Wood did yesterday. She bought a lot of this open. Again, she continues to buy it. She bought a boatload of Twitter. Twitter has their meeting today. I think their analyst meeting today. SGFY, a new issue, they keep buying. Tesla, they bought the crap out of. BFLY, they continue to buy. That's a SPAC with like one of these genomic platforms. And on the sell side, they have Apple, Splunk, nothing major. The big purchase was the Tesla. They bought 239,000 shares. And at $800 or $700 a share, that's real money, as we know. Okay, so that's what she's doing. So that's the research. Syndicate-wise, I actually forgot to look. So let's see what's in syndicate land today. The calendar was kind of sort of soft this week. There wasn't a lot. So 1, 2, 3. You got 3 secondaries, 4 secondaries, Discovery Inc., Fresh Pet, CELC, none of them that big, and BFRA I never heard of. And Think Equity is doing a IPO, $4 stock. I have no interest in Think Equity's deals. And you have 3 more deals priced next week, later in the week, yet GTES, Trox, and SCR. So that's that on the syndicate world. I think the challenge of the market clearly is the loan bonds. Earnings tonight, you got NVIDIA, Teladoc, and Viacom. Tomorrow, you got Norwegian Cruise Lines, Plug, Pizza, Starwood, just to name a few, Best Buy, CLF, etc. Okay, so that's really, a synopsis of what's going on. I think, the market is clearly focusing on the bonds, and it doesn't feel like you're going to get those vicious moves up in these small stocks that we've been getting. Okay, so profits are a little hard to come by, in my opinion. And when that's the case, you got to trade a little smaller, pick your spots. Don't go hog wild. Look for what you're looking for. Like I came in with what? Sona was my biggest play overnight. I have some Twitter. I have a bunch of SPACs. But by and large, I'm pretty light for me. Like super light. I'm probably 90% cash, 88% cash. So for me, that's, I'm usually 88% invested versus, 12% in cash. I'm the exact opposite. All right. I just don't like the setup so much. I think it's chop fest. And, I'm going to be out tomorrow and maybe Friday. So I'm starting to focus on that. And that's really it. I mean, I think the Bitcoin play, you can maybe get some traction, but you have to watch the bond market. And the stocks that have been doing well are going to continue to do well. Banks, airlines, cruise lines, cyclicals, at the expense of the high PE tech, semis, FANG. I think that's the way to play it. And so there's a lot of volatility. The insurer that I liked was WRB, but it's not a trading name, Genfis. It's an investment name. Okay, it doesn't trade enough volume. It's really too thin. So it's probably not for 99% of you guys. I just mentioned it because it was in the research pack, and I know these guys pretty well. Anyway, I have time. I mean, there's not a whole lot of news out this morning. So if you want to talk about something, you want to ask me a question on something, now's probably a good time. I think there's times to really, roll the dice, and there's times not to. And I think we're in the time not to. And can you talk about what this move in the bond yields means? Yeah, so, when you look at this whole complex of things you can invest in, okay, they're all competing for your money in the bank, basically. Okay, so you can buy bonds, you can buy stocks, you can buy gold, you can buy Bitcoin, you can buy real estate. That's pretty much it, right? And the bond market's divided corporate and governments and stuff like that. All right, as rates go up, they provide more competition for stocks. Right now, the rate is like 1.4%. So, I mean, would you guys be happy making 1.4% on your money? I would not. So I don't think it's major competition yet, but it's the direction and the velocity of the move that's scaring people, and I think that's why the market's coming in. don't think of gold as a competitive asset class. And I never did, to be honest. Okay, real estate, I don't even think that's a competitive asset class because the investment horizon is so long. So I'm looking at, liquid kind of investment class, and you've got gold and Bitcoin, and you've got the bond market, and you've got stocks. And I think stocks will, provide a better opportunity. But as inflation goes up, as rates go up, the PE ratio of stocks, is going to be crimped. And that's what we're looking at. Okay, so these high PE names are going to get tagged. So that's the part that you have to kind of weigh in your mind. All right. And that's it in a nutshell. When's my class? I've gone over this with you guys a couple times. I'm really having a lot of trouble visually. And when this is behind me, I have my first operation Thursday, and hopefully I'll have the next one 2 weeks after that. And they say it takes, a few weeks to get back to see. So, it's been a struggle, but we all have speed bumps. Some of us worse than others. To me, this is, not so bad. I mean, I know you guys, everybody has stuff, and the stuff can be worse, believe me. So my big concern is my biggest concern is if they tax a transaction tax. Other than that, I don't give a damn what the market does, because I know I can outtrade it. Okay? And that's it. But I don't want to trade with, my hands tied, which a transaction tax would do. And that's it. I'm out of time. I'm going to get back to Spartan. And I appreciate you guys. And thanks for the well wishes. And we'll see what happens. Okay? Spartan, it's all yours, my man.
All right. Thank you, South Beach. All right, guys. Morning. Going to quickly rip through everything again. Everything's posted, and then we'll close down the YouTube stream. So, couple things. Here's the pre-market action plan. You can obviously see the notes posted here. You can read through them, pause the YouTube and watch it, or read through the notes. There's all the other charts, etc. A couple things that we're looking at today: AI, SI, OSTK, Riot, FSR, SYPR, AI bouncing and sympathy with the market, SI bouncing sympathy with BTC after square buy, OSTK earnings miss, EPS and revs, Riot bouncing in sympathy with Bitcoin as well, FSR, Fisker shares up 21% following news of collaboration with Foxconn. Then SYPR, they basically signed a defense contract. All right, let's take a look at these names from a technical standpoint. And real quick, before I show you these charts, real quick, here's the options notes as well. Okay, so let's take a look at everything from a technical perspective intraday. First two names we're looking at today, AI and SI. AI, 127.43, guys, pivot to the upside today. This level is able to hold room towards 133.89 to 137.54. Unable to hold 122.76 to 114.64 will be tested on the downside. Overall on AI, going to be leaning on the bullish side today, looking for a continuation push higher. SI, pivot to the upside today is going to be the 141.36 spot. The level is able to hold room towards 149.03 to 154.36. Unable to hold, look for a pullback to 132.32 to 125.69 on the downside. Overall on SI, going to be leaning on the bullish. Neutral side, if we can reclaim that pivot, I think we can see a push higher. So that's what I'll be watching for out the gate today. OSTK and Riot. Let's take a look at these two. OSTK pivot to the downside, 79.49. Unable to hold, room towards 76.77 to 73.26. Able to reclaimed, room towards 82.42 to 86.09 on the upside. Overall on OSTK, going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side today, looking for a pull basing to take the stock long. So I want to look for support to kick in and then look to take the stock long on this name. Riot, 58.30 pivot to the upside today. This level is able to hold. You got room towards 62.17 to 67.65. Unable to hold, 52.40 to 48.34 will be tested on the downside. Overall on Riot, going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side today. If we can get above that pivot, we can see continuation bounce to the upside. So we'll see if we're able to do that today or not. Let's take a look at FSR. Let's take a look at SYPR. Oops. FSR. 1937 on FSR, pivot to the upside today. Level holds in towards 2076 to 2197. Unable to hold, 1832 to 1761 will be retested on the downside. Overall on FSR, going to be leaning on the bullish side today, looking for a hold of the pivot and continuation grind higher. SYPR, 506 pivot level holds towards 578 to 654. That level breaks. We see further continuation into the 778 spot. Unable to hold, look for a pullback towards 437.34. 437 to 344, sorry, on the downside. Overall on this name, looking for a continuation pop out the gate and then topping to kick in to take the stock short. So we'll see if it happens now. All right, so that's FSR, that's SYPR. Let's take a look at the SPY and the FANG. One second. Okay. Perfect. SPY, 388.32 pivot to the downside today, unable to hold towards 387.10 to 385.87. That level breaks. We can see the 385s. Able to be reclaimed the pivot. Look for a push back to 389.52 to 390.24 on the upside. Overall on the SPY, guys, I am going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side, looking for a basing to kick in and then take the stock long. So I was saying I wanted to pull up the gate. We're kind of getting it in the pre-market already. So if you get a little bit lower and then look for that basing to kick in to take it long on a bounce. We'll see what happens. Apple. Pivot to the upside today is going to be the 126.35 spot. Levels able to hold. We got room towards 128.32 to 130.16. Unable to hold 124.94 to 123.25 will be tested on the downside. Overall, in Apple, going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side, looking for basing to kick in as well to take the stock long. We'll see if that happens. Right now, it is looking a little bit heavy in the pre-market. Let's take a look at Amazon. Pivot, 31.99.12. Levels able to be reclaimed towards 32.26 to 32.48. Unable to hold 31.75 to 31.47 will be tested. Overall on Amazon, same thing. Going to be looking for basing to kick in to take the stock long for a bounce. Netflix. Pivot to the downside today is that 545 level. Unable to hold. We look for a continuation towards the 538.84, so the 533.21 level. Able to hold, look for pushback towards 550.73 on the upside. Overall on Netflix, leaning bearish, looking for a little bit of a continuation lower. Want to see retest the inverted head and shoulders and EMA support before looking for a continued bounce. I think it comes in a little bit more. Facebook, pivot to the downside today, 267.22. Unable to hold, 263.85 to 260.25. Able to be reclaimed, look for pushback to 269.84 on the upside. Leaning bearish on Facebook. If it cannot reclaim the pivot, we should be able to come in a little bit more. And then last but not least, guys, Google. Pivot to the upside today is that 2091 spot levels, able to be reclaimed towards 2117. Unable to hold. Look for a retest of the 2048, which is where we're at right now, and then 2021 on the downside. I'm leaning bullish neutral, looking for a grind up towards the pivot, see if we can get it, retested, and then see if we can get it back above it. So that is that. That's the SPY, that's a FANG. Those are the individual names that we're looking at today, guys. Real quick, VXX, pivot, 1515, which are above. Watch the 1561 and 16 level on the upside. We'll see what happens there. Alrighty, we're going to go ahead and close down the YouTube stream, guys. Thanks for coming in. We do this every single Wednesday. We'll see you guys next week. SpartanTrading.com. If you have